I'm Terrydavidmulligan. This is Mulligan Stew, CKUA, the Mulligan Stew podcast, and strangely enough, the Terrydavidmulligan YouTube channel. That's just the way it worked. Sorry. You had to put a name on it that said, what do you want to call it? So I just used my name. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even asked. It was somebody else. Corb Lund has joined me. Did anybody ever say to you, Corb, first of all, nice to see you.
Yes, you.
Is that your fix-it room?
It's half studio, half garage. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm one of those organized people, kind of.
Nice. Very nice. Oh, annoying as hell. Anybody ever say to you, you can't use that name, it's too bulky, it just doesn't work?
My name?
Yeah.
Well,
a marketing person?
No, but I mean, the bulk of my career until the last few years has been pretty indie. So, I mean, I haven't really had the kind of people to tell me about that kind of thing. I just had to do it myself. Okay. But I mean, I've had plenty of personal experience of people in the bar having trouble with it. So yeah, it's very mumbly. Like my actual name is Corby. So had I gone with Corby Lund, it's a bit more enunciable. But Corb Lund is very mumbly, especially in a loud bar, you know. So it's and then even if they understand it, they don't know what the hell it is. Is that the band, or what does that mean? Is that Celtic or something? And the ideal thing is to have a banner or something, so I can just point at it. That's me. It's cool because once you get it, it's quite unique. But yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve. That's a good observation.
How many times has somebody come up to you and said, "Are you named after the boat?"
A couple, but not that many.
I'm sorry, it just goes with the name. That's all. Fishermen immediately think of a boat.
They have a thing in rural Manitoba called Lund Mania, and I need to play that, I think, but it's a boat oriented thing, you know. But I feel that would be a good place for me to play a gig, probably.
Listen, there's some dates in front of me that I just love, and I'll double back on this, but just touching on something here. I see that March the 5th you're playing the Orpheum.
That's right.
2021, you did 3 nights at the Wise Hall.
That's also correct.
It's in the same town, but it's a major leap from 3 nights at the Wise Hall to play in the Orpheum, my friend. How do you feel about that? What does it represent?
Well, we played the Wise Hall on purpose because that tour a couple of years ago we called it Back to the Barrooms because frankly, it was right after COVID had lifted or started to, and we didn't know what to expect, you know, because we didn't know if people would be skittish about coming out. Turns out they weren't. They were quite happy to come out, but no one knew what to expect in terms of people's comfort level with coming to shows. So we booked it in the bars, and the second thing about it was because COVID took us out of action for a couple of years, like everyone, we thought it would be a good idea just to sort of pay homage. And is it homage or homage? It's homage. To some of the smaller bars and some of the ones that we used to play, because I know that COVID was really hard on some of those places too. So we just thought it was a good fit. Like A, we weren't sure what people were going to be like coming out, and B, we thought would be super fun, and it was super fun. But now we're back to a larger venue, which is a little more in line with what we used to do.
I was just looking. I was reading Hearts on Fire, that book, Michael Barclay's book about 6 years that changed Canadian country music in the city. That chapter in particular with you and Be Good Tanya's and Kathleen Edwards and the Sadies. Played the Sadies on just a couple of minutes ago. Talking about an alt country movement in the 90s and into 2000s. And that the field was littered with ex-punks who suddenly discovered acoustic guitars. It's a pretty broad swath to paint everybody like that. But do you see the reality in that?
To an extent, there's a few.
You do, because that's where you came from.
Yeah, there's a few things about that. Like, I mean, playing guitar is kind of playing guitar. I mean, there's some stylistic differences and cultural and emotional differences, but if you learn to play rock guitar when you're 20, it's not that big a stretch to get familiar with the acoustic. So, and as well, like when you're 20, like when I was 20, I had a lot of different emotions than I have now. You know, like rock and roll, in my opinion, is a young person's game. So I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, and the other thing too is that, I mean, indie kind of rock music and old school country they're different flavors, but they're still under the umbrella of, you know, music of the common person, you know? So I think there's a reality there. And in my case, it was maybe a bit different because for me, it was less of if you saw that my whole life from birth,
Yeah.
it would be less of a surprise that I was playing Western music than it would be to find out I was playing metal in the 90s. Because
Yeah.
I grew up, my family were all cowboys and ranchers and rodeo people, and my dad was a large animal veterinarian in the country, so I grew up with that stuff. So in terms of the rural content, that was pretty natural fit for me.
Was your family happy when you made the switch?
Very happy. Yeah, my folks for, you know, for Western people were pretty open-minded about the Smalls. Like they did the best they could, but I don't blame them for being alienated. I mean, that's a pretty intense cultural shift, you know. But I think for me, I grew up with cowboy stuff, and I just thought it was normal. Like I thought everyone rode steers in junior high and all that stuff, and then turns out that's not normal in the broader population. But for me, all the cowboy stuff was just normal day-to-day stuff. So I found Black Sabbath and Motorhead really exotic, right? And interesting, and unlike anything I'd grown up with. So you know, when you're 15, there's that sort of urge to find your own way in the world. So that was what that was for me.
I frankly couldn't find myself anywhere into that whole. You might as well be talking about Poland, a corner of Poland somewhere. Just all the heavy metal, all the thrash, all that stuff. I couldn't follow down that road. I couldn't.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, Terry, is that I think that 10 years in the indie metal band had a big effect on my songwriting, because as you probably know, like indie rock world, whether it's punk or metal or whatever, it's very big on uniqueness and finding your own voice and doing it your way and all that stuff. And had I gone straight into Western music from high school, I probably wouldn't write the weird stuff that I write. But my songwriting was sort of forged in a furnace of you wanting to be unique and finding your own path and being a rebellious kid or whatever. So it's hard for me to not write that way. So I've carried it over into Western music, I think.
I'll tell you this as an aside. And I've never talked to you about this. I love the dialogue that you have with yourself. Your dialogue with your internal dialogue, you know, the one that we can't hear. I'm just guessing, but I love I would love to hear the conversations you have with yourself, and maybe they show up in the lyrics. Maybe I'm looking at them already.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to be in my head or not, really.
By the way, speaking of punks, ex-punks, Joey Keithley is now a city councilor in Burnaby, making it a better place, and still goes out and tours. And Art Bergman is in an Order of Canada and writing, you know, Russell Groom.
Sweet. Well, there's hope for me yet, huh?
Your friend Jeff Berner called you. I love this. I've always loved it. The poet laureate of the Albertan people.
Okay.
Did you wear that well?
Yeah, I mean, I would never say that, but if that's a compliment coming from Jeff.
Except if you write something or say something that they disagree with, then you'll find out who your friends are.
Yeah, kind of. But people are, I don't know. There's a little more leeway here than the outside press gives us credit for sometimes. Depends on the issue, but yeah.
Okay, I'm putting my notes away for a second.
Right.
Because I've looked at the play. I said, what do I want to play? What do I want to? Because the album came out yesterday, and Viejo, and we've heard the Out on a Win, and we've heard Redneck Rehab. That's just the tease of what's to come. I love the fact that there's no electric guitars in there. It's all very acoustic. Did you do it in a song circle? Did you all play at the same time off the floor?
Yeah, it's all live. The four of us just sat in a circle in my living room and did it. And yeah, you're right. There's not a single electric lick on the whole record. It's all banjos and mandolins and resonators and stuff like that. I really love acoustic sounds, and it's still quite a raucous album. I don't mean it's acoustic in terms of it being all mellow, but the instruments are all acoustic, and it was really fun doing it live. Like all the vocals are live, and there's hardly any overdubs on the whole thing. It's just the longer I do this is, I guess it's album number 10 of original material, not counting smalls, not counting covers records. But the longer I do this, the less enamored I am with perfect sounding industry standard radio sounding records. Like the more computers and the more layers and the more stuff you do like that, the less human it gets, in my opinion. And it depends on the style. But some of my favorite records sound like shit, like Jackson Browne Running on Empty. Some of that's recorded on his tour bus. You can hear the traffic, and like some of the old Dylan records and Johnny Cash records, like the bass player screws up and they don't fix it. I love that stuff. I like warts and I like reality, and I think especially in my style of music, where I'm telling stories and trying to relate to people on quite a fundamental level, I think the more real it is, the better. And having said that, not to pump our tires too much, but my band and I we've played so many shows that, like, not everybody can pull off a live record, frankly, but we can, because we played together for so long. As it was really fun, and I think it's quite organic and hopefully compelling.
El Viejo came out yesterday. It's the 10th album from Corb Lund and the Hurtin Albertans. And it's acoustic. And Scott Franchuck was twiddling the knobs. I love the fact that my friend Scott's in there. The title track is the whole album is in memory of an homage to Ian Tyson, your pal.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Born on the rock I'm living on right now.
That's right. Yeah, he's a Victoria guy. Do you know Tom Russell, obviously, right?
Yep.
Him and Ian were buddies and songwriting partners. They wrote Navajo Rug together. But the last few years, Tom started referring to Ian as El Viejo. It means the old man. So it was kind of our nickname for him. And yeah, the title track is about Ian and losing him. And he was a good friend. I've known him for probably 20 years, I guess, and I would sometimes forget about his stature, because you become friends with someone and it's just your pal. And he never felt like I was hanging out with a 70 or 80-year-old. I always felt like I was hanging out with just another guitar player buddy.
Well, you had music in common, and you had ranching and cowboys in common. And
yeah, he never acted like an old guy. He was always kept stuff, and then every once in a while I would forget about his stature, and then I'd see a note from Dylan on the wall, or a picture of Neil Young covering Four Strong Winds that would remind me who I'm talking to.
Aren't you happy that you did that tour with him?
Yeah, I did a number of tours with him. Yeah, I'm really happy. And we recorded together, and I've spent a lot of time with Ian, and we became pretty good friends. And aside from all the career stuff and the mentorship, and the biggest thing is just missing him as a buddy.
Maybe it's because Richie Valens' death just went by along with Buddy Holly, that date where we lost the songs, the day the music died. But I wrote Richie Valens' name beside The Game Gets Hot because of the beat and the little thing in there. There's a lot of card game action in the album, isn't there?
There's a lot of card game action on the album. That's right. Yep. Right. What you know. I think that song in particular, The Game Gets Hot. It's about I wrote that with a guy named Brian Koppelman, who's a Hollywood screenwriter who I've become friends with. He wrote Rounders. Remember Rounders?
Yeah.
So yeah, and he and I share an interest in the underbelly of the gambling world. But my great grandfather was before he came up and homesteaded in Alberta, he was a road gambler in Butte, Montana in 1800s. So it's kind of loosely based on his.
Have you heard stories of his actions, his life? Cool.
Yeah. I felt
and how long have you loved wrestling, MMA?
I don't know. I mean, I had those VHS tapes from the 90s, like the first couple with Hoist Gracie and that, so quite a while, I guess.
I know your drunken feeling. Is that about the gummy bears?
Yeah, true story.
True story. Where did it happen?
Not inspired by. It's literally exactly how it went down.
Where did it take place?
LaPorte, Colorado, at a little saloon called the Swing Station, and it was quite a novelty at the time because I think Colorado was the first state to legalize, right, even before us, and the pot guys in my band thought it would be a fun pilgrimage to go to this dispensary, and it was pretty unique at the time because no one had ever seen that, to actually go into a well-lit pharmaceutical looking place with every spot available. And I'm not a pot guy. I'm pro pot ethically, but it's not my particular flavor of choice. But we all did a gummy bear at noon, and I thought I'd be fine by showtime, and it was a nightmare. It was terrifying.
I think we've established, Corb, that you're a whiskey guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't drink a whole lot, but I would rather, yeah, that's correct. Gin in the summer.
I just finished the whiskey festival in Victoria. That's why it's front and center.
What'd you
I'm surrounded. Literally, my feet are 15, 20 bottles of whiskey down there.
What did you learn?
What I learned was I'm not a whiskey guy.
Are you not a whiskey guy?
No, I'm a wine guy.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
I felt it was important to cover whiskey because it's right there, and I the craft of whiskey is an art. The blending of whiskey. I mean, you make it, sure you make it, and then you wait 15 to 18 years before you release it.
Yeah, that's right.
You're making money doing something else besides that.
I wrote a song on my last record called Old Men, and the chorus is I want old men making my whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, like you're exactly right. It takes 20 years to even find out if the first batch is any good, right? And as much as I'm down with the idea of independent distilleries and kids doing it, it's like I kind of want an old guy who, has been doing it his entire life, making the whiskey, you know what I mean?
You know what's a track I loved here? The Card Player. I just liked it. I just liked it because first of all, it tells you what it is right off the front.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things about that song. The guy, there's a fella named Evan Felker, who's an old friend of mine. He sings in a band called the Turnpike Troubadours, and he's the songwriter. And he's written a bunch of songs where he names his songs like paintings, like the bird
Right.
or the funeral house fire. It's kind of like a painting style name. So that's kind of borrowed from him, the title. And it's a true story about me and he and I and his band getting thrown out of a riverboat casino in Illinois because they thought we were cheating, but we honestly were just really drunk, and I guess they thought it was an act or something, but they threw us all out of there. And that's what the song's about. And
Let's talk about tour for just a second, because you're about to launch it, and it's 44 dates, including March the 22nd at Carnegie Hall.
yeah,
That is a great lineup. Roll on Cowboys with Andy Hedges and friends. There's you, and there's Don Flemons, who was cut adrift after his leading lady voice went on her old solo career. There's you, Waddy Mitchell. Oh, there's lots. There's a lot, and Tom Russell.
Ramblin' Jack Elliott's on that one, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a kind of a unique one-off because Andy Hedges is a guy from Lubbock, Texas, who's a friend of mine, and he's a cowboy song historian, and he knows more about all the old traditional cowboy songs than anyone I've ever met. And he put together a record called Roll On Cowboys, which is him doing a bunch of those old traditionals as duets with a bunch of his friends, including myself. And so he's recreating that whole show at Carnegie Hall. So I'm involved in that, which is pretty cool.
Okay, on El Viejo, give me an example if you can in the tune so I can play it. There's a quote, I love this from you. Regionalism is missing in commercial music. Everybody's going for generalities. Sometimes the interest is found in the quirky details.
Yeah. Well, the title track's a great example of that because the second verse, it's a tribute to Ian Tyson, my discussed. And the whole second verse and the chorus it has a whole bunch of references to an event that happens in Elko, Nevada every year. It's called the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering, which is it's kind of like a folk fest, but it's all legit old school traditional cowboy poetry and cowboy music and art. And there's a whole bunch of references to that event in that song, which if you're not familiar with the event are probably over your head. But the idea with those kind of songs is to make it's the same with the MMA song. The trick is to make it really specific and get the terminology correct so that people who know that world understand that you know what you're talking about, but at the same time make it general enough that someone who doesn't have a familiarity with that world understands the general gist of it. I remember as a kid when I'd hear songs like that with references I didn't understand, I found it fascinating, and I'd go look. This is before Google, obviously, but I'd go to the library and look up what that stuff meant, and it was fascinating to me. So I think you want to balance the specificity with the generality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Am I ranting?
No, hell no, no. Are you crazy? I'm trying to stay out of the way. Uh, has your audience changed? I think it does every time you go out. If you give it a year and a half, like a well-made something or other, it's seasoned. And depending on where you play, I kind of wonder who shows up. Like in New York, that's a different gig completely from even actually, you know what? Even the Orpheum is different because you're some of them are urban and some of them are ranchers and farmers, and that's I guess where the venue says how it all works.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a really diverse audience in some ways, which is really cool. I'm proud of that. And it's very geographically dependent, because if we play in, Montana or Arizona or Texas or even Alberta, it tends to be quite a rural crowd that actually lives that lifestyle and listens to cowboy music and maybe red dirt Texas music. If we play out east, it tends to be more maybe Steve Earle fans, Americana fans.
Ah.
In more urban centers, it tends to be more that kind of thing. And I think overall it's probably 50-50, which is really cool, because I like being able to play rural based music to people who live that lifestyle, but I also like playing it like we're playing in Prague in the summer. So I like playing places that maybe don't have that background and expose that culture to them. I think it's a cool place to be.
Very cool. That would be a wonderful discovery for somebody who realized that they love that. For example, I'm kind of wondering if you had a time was there a period when you weren't quite sure if stories of rural Alberta and the West would play in Toronto or Halifax or whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Definitely wasn't sure. I was inspired by people like uh, Bruce Springsteen, who sings about New Jersey slums, or the Eagles, who sing about Southern California, or Ian Tyson, who sings about cowboying in the Canadian Rockies. I mean, I think, like, it goes back to your previous comment. I think if you're honest and authentic about your region and your culture, and it has a universality to it.
As a matter of fact, I went by and I saw a quote from you about, I think it was in the book actually, about you realizing, hearing Bruce Springsteen for the first time, and he's singing about New Jersey, which might as well be the far side of the moon. But in his writing and his singing, he brought you into the song, right?
It takes you places, right? I mean, I don't know. Everybody's different. Some people just want to hear about what they know, but there's a lot of people out there who, including myself, who are fascinated by other parts of the world or ways to live. And another element of it is, I mean, people like cowboy shit, right? Like it's a pretty universal thing. If you go to Japan and say cowboy, they kind of know what you mean. It's a pretty universal thing, you know. And so I have that going for me, and I can sort of back it up because I grew up that way. So it kind of has a built-in fascination for a lot of people anywhere in the world, really.
Well, Hollywood loves it.
Sure.
They never get it right, but Hollywood loves it.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they do. By the way, I thought I'd just go and check out Spotify for Corb Lund Land.
Uh-oh.
They have you pegged as
Do that.
they have you pegged as new music, North Country, Renegades, and best folk songs. You make 4 different categories. That's okay.
Yeah, that's cool with me. I mean, I mix I steal from everybody. Like I just have I have a big cauldron, and I don't really, like, we play Western swing, and we play folk, and we play Wayland country rock, and we play talking blues songs, and it's just all a big cauldron. It's fun now.
I forgot to ask you at the top of the interview. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little frazzled, to be honest. We've been really hitting it hard since COVID lifted, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. But I'm good. Things are good.
Well, you're the one pulling the strings.
Yeah, but yeah, well, I'm not complaining, but you asked me, so
Okay. I'm looking at these dates here going March 5, Orpheum in Vancouver, the 6th in Kelowna. This is March the 7th in Calgary at Grey Eagle.
yeah.
March the 9th, Midway in Edmonton. And then you get out of town because March the 22nd is Zankel Hall at Carnegie, New York City. I love the fact that April the 14th, you're in Lubbock, Texas.
It's true. Yeah.
Buddy Holly's hometown.
And Wayland.
And Wayland.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
I like Lubbock. It's fun. It's very desolate. West Texas is very desolate. It's like that's Saskatchewan kind of. That's not a criticism, but it's remote.
And then May 28th, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Hey, come on.
That whole tour in Europe is with the Dead South from Saskatchewan. Yeah. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. They're doing like 4,000 or 5,000 a night everywhere over there. It's crazy. And we're not just playing Western Europe, we're playing Bratislava in Slovakia, we're playing Prague, we're playing Berlin, we're playing Budapest. It's gonna be cool. I'm stoked.
You have any second languages?
I mean, I can muck around in French if I have to, but
okay.
I'm not very good at it.
You're doing some solo dates over there as well, aren't you?
Yeah, in Ireland, yeah.
What about us here in the West? When are you coming back? I mean, the fall. Will you be around for festivals or?
Yeah, well, I imagine we'll do some festivals. This is the time of year where they're kind of dialing all that in. But yeah, March for sure, and then after that, we'll be drifting back, I'm sure.
Wow. I love this album, by the way. I just love this.
Honestly, I think it's one of our best for quite a long time.
It is. It is. You know what? Had it all. I had it all. Tell me about I had it all.
That's kind of a gambling romp. It's
how strange.
It's not a story song like some of my songs. It's more of a word painting, you know.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's kind of bluesy, and my bass player Sean plays a really cool harp part on it. I like that one. That's one of my favorites, actually. It's got my favorite. I got two favorite lines on the record.
Redneck Rehab.
What's the question?
Well, first of all, it was a single, but I mean, was it one of the favorites? No.
I was gonna say there's two lines on the record that are my favorites, and one of the lines is in I Had It All. It's I think it's a cowboy past and a speed metal future, and it says something about taking graduate courses on the insides of bars and outsides of horses. I like that line.
You still write as a poet, right?
I'm not sure what is that. What?
Neither am I. I mean, you're a poet, and you're a singer-songwriter.
I guess. I'm kind of a slave to the music first. It has to be catchy. Like,
are you saying that none of these songs were words on a page first and then became a song?
That's correct. They weren't. No, the music. It comes with the music simultaneously usually. In fact, usually the music
comes with a riff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's slow. I don't. A lot of people sit down and write a song in an afternoon. It hardly ever happens for me. If I work on an afternoon, I usually have 4 or 5 on the go, and I take them off the shelf and polish them a little bit and put them back. Usually takes me months to write them.
Do you keep notebooks?
Yeah. I mean, some of it's digital, but it feels better. I've been going back to pencil lately. The lead pencil just feels good.
Yeah, and also I've found that if it's a script I have to remember, if I write it out, I remember it.
There's something to that. Yeah. I think it definitely, when you're creating too, I think it opens up different brain centers or something.
So occasionally, if you're stuck, maybe you're looking for a bridge or something, can you go back to an old book and find something, dig it out, found material?
Oh yeah. I've got mountains of stuff. Riffs too. I've got, I don't know, hard drives full of riffs.
Okay, a couple of questions. I'll let you go. Are you going to do any acting?
Any more?
Acting.
Well, I did that movie last year or a couple
Yeah.
years.
That's why I'm asking. I'm
Ago.
wondering.
Yeah, that was really fun. It was a good experience. I'm not sure if I'll do much more, but I enjoy it kind of, and I think I'm okay at it. But it's just you only got so many months in a year, and it's quite time consuming. And I really, after all these years, I'm still honestly really passionate about music.
Yeah.
COVID was really good for that. I started taking guitar lessons again, and I'm like a 22-year-old watching YouTube videos about guitars and stuff. I'm taking lessons from Megadeth's guitar player right now.
Oh, nice.
I was taking lessons from him before he joined Megadeth, and then he joined Megadeth, so I can say that, I guess.
What are the lessons? Chord
It's
structure?
purely technique. It's like really finer points of hand movement and stuff.
Hmm.
It's not like scales and riffs. It's sheerly technical ergonomic stuff.
And what's your guitar?
Mostly the Telecaster and acoustic.
Okay. Uh, damn, I had something I wanted to ask you about.
Can I rant about coal for a minute?
Huh?
Can I rant about coal mines for a minute?
Yeah, go. Actually, that's one of the things I had written to myself was, uh, they like you out there, except when you're not singing about or talking about things that they don't care for. So there seems to be a lot of pushback these days. How's it going on the?
Well, it's funny because long story short, most people know this, but a couple of years ago, I spoke out publicly because the government had quietly rescinded Lougheed's coal policy, which allowed a whole bunch of mining in the eastern slopes of the Rockies that no one knew about because they did it really sneaky. And there's been a bunch of polling on it, and there really isn't that much pushback. Like the polls are like saying that 78 to 80% of Albertans are against any new coal mines in the Rockies, and that's a crazy number for polling. Like they tell me, short of like, do you like beer and hockey or whatever? But yeah, and there's a significant mine they're trying to put in Grassy Mountain near Crow's Nest Pass, which is right at the headwaters of the Old Man River, which I personally drink water out of, and so does my family and friends. And the Joint Review Panel last year shut it down. Like the feds and the provincials said this is not in the public interest, and somehow they've allowed them to reapply, and they're pushing on it. And so I frankly don't know who's in favor of these mines except for the foreign coal companies and the politicians, I guess. And I don't care about parties. I don't like any of the parties. I'm not party affiliated, and I'm not anti-resource. It's just that this particular idea is a really stupid one, and it's going to ruin our water and eat up a bunch of our water in the middle of a multi-year drought. And I would almost stake my reputation on the prediction that a number of years from now, one way or another, the taxpayer is going to be on the bill to pay for the cleanup. And I wasn't brought into this by, you know, left-leaning eco warriors, of which I have friends, and that's cool, but that's not who brought me into this. The people that brought me into this thing were generational ranchers who were going to have their places and their water wrecked by these foreign coal mines. And there's nothing in it for Alberta except for a handful of jobs, and the royalty rate's really low. And I don't know who's behind it, but I'll tell you one thing that not everybody's familiar with yet. Long story short, and I'm not picking on anybody's party, but this is just a fact. Jason Kenney, under his administration, quietly rescinded the coal policy. Albertans screamed about it so much that the Alberta government had to walk that back and reinstate the policy. Now a bunch of coal mine companies from Australia are suing the Alberta public, the taxpayer, for $10 billion. And there's a law firm in Calgary called Bennett Jones, which is representing a lot of those coal companies. And on the board of Bennett Jones, I've been told, is now Jason Kenney after his serving in office. So to me, I'm sure it's legal. I'm not saying it's illegal, but it's greasy as hell. If that's true, it's very greasy because the guy whose administration put us in this mess is now on the side of the lawyers representing the foreign coal companies who are trying to sue the Alberta public for a bunch of money they should have never had in the first place. So
Ethics.
I don't like it at all.
Thank you for this. And now that we cleansed our souls there, congratulations on this music and the Hurtin Albertans and Scott Franchuck and going touring and playing Carnegie Hall and all that stuff.
Yeah, I want to say thanks for having me, and it's really cool that we've been able to have a many year relationship. I remember watching you on TV on the video shows and stuff, and I was just a little kid, so it's still pretty cool every time I get to talk to you.
Thank you, man. And a word, if you will, about the CKUA. How you like it? You like that station?
Of course, yeah. CKUA has been nothing but good to me for decades. And you know, I run into people, and there's only a few, like if I'm in the States or something, and there's only a few things from Alberta they know. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's the Calgary Stampede, but a lot of people know about CKUA because they're on the internet feed. It's got long tentacles. It's cool.
Thank you, man. Take care of yourself. Have a great, you're going to, that's a Hurtin tour. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. I'll try to cross paths with you somewhere down the way.
Hey, see you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. You too. Bye.